helping everyone who needs it for breast cancer, and that they can find us readily and without any barriers. We are here, we require no proof of need, and we have never turned a patient away. I would like to thank the entire team of our generous sponsor, Showcase Superlux, here in Chestnut Hill, for providing us such an appropriate pre-Oscar venue for our conversation. We are sitting 6 feet apart, but we will not be wearing masks during our conversation. The movies are open, so please treat yourself to an actual night out and enjoy some of the Oscar-nominated films. And speaking of the Oscars, you may know that the Ellie Fund hosts a wonderful gala in conjunction with our fabulous media partner, WCVB Channel 5. It is truly a community event and helps us raise a very large portion of the money that we use to support our patients with essential non-medical services. Also, if you are in the Newton or Chestnut Hill area, Showcase Superlux is giving away 20 copies, free copies of this wonderful book, The Waiting Room. You'll hear more about that in a minute. So if you are around, come in and you can grab your copy at the concierge desk. Many of our supporters in attendance tonight are patients, and we thank you all for allowing us to serve and to support you when you need it. I also want to thank the Ellie Fund team, all of them, for not blocking my phone number, nor pretending that your screens froze when I asked you if we could pull off a live TV show 24 days before the gala. They are truly wonderful. This year, due to COVID, we're honoring our 25th anniversary by hosting our celebratory concert right here at Showcase Superlux. It will be emceed by Shayna Seymour and Erica Tarantal of Channel 5. It will also feature 3 amazing performers, and tickets start at only $25. So we're hoping that many of you will buy a ticket, tune in, maybe in your black tie finest, maybe in your athleisure wear. It's all the same. We'll be done by the Academy Awards, and we really look forward to celebrating with you. Tickets are available for the Red Carpet Gala on our events page at www.elliefund.org. In the 25 years that the Ellie Fund has existed, we've learned quite a bit about the different journeys and experiences that our patients face. And one thing is clear: no 2 patients are the same, and no 2 journeys are the same. Each patient faces a specific set of challenges. Some are medical and some otherwise. Well, in the spirit of recognizing that no 2 patient journeys are the same, there are some common threads. Tonight, we hope to start a meaningful conversation about how to be a better friend to yourself or to someone else who is going through breast cancer. We are so pleased to have our very first Ellie Connects conversation with Joanna Chanis, author of The Waiting Room book, your friend to help you and your loved ones through the diagnosis, and someone that I have loved and admired for the past 15 years. Joanna, thank you for being here and for taking an interest in the Ellie Fund when you are already so involved in many worthwhile causes. I'm just going to take a moment to introduce you to everyone. This is Joanna's book. Joanna is a mother and an entrepreneur. She also makes time to serve as a mentor to young entrepreneurs. If that's not enough, she helps teenagers who have lost a parent. Joanna was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2019, and everything changed for her. She knew that her purpose was to help other women facing this challenge. Joe, obviously there's so much that we can talk about as it relates to breast cancer, but what brings us together is friendship and a knack for very honest communication, which is really a main theme of your book and clearly was a driving force during your own treatment. Tell us about being a better friend to someone going through breast cancer treatment, and tell us why you see this book as a friend to patients also.
First of all, thank you so much, Meredith, for having me. It's so nice to be part of something so special. and to be able to share it with you. So I'm super grateful, and your staff is so amazing, and happy to be here. How to be a better friend to somebody going through breast cancer, and how I feel the book can be that. We'll start with the book question first, if that's okay. When I was diagnosed in 2019, I had a unique situation. Well, I don't know how unique it is, but it was definitely unique to me, that I had 10 weeks between the time of my diagnosis to my life-saving double mastectomy surgery. In those 10 weeks, it was a transformative journey. It was the hardest time in my life, of course, and I was really, really, really lucky. I had a great support system, incredible network of family and friends. I had lots of books that I, had access to, both on the medical side and then on the spiritual side. But I felt like I couldn't find that one thing, that one point of understanding, that safe space that I could just cry into when I really lost it, or get that instant comfort. And throughout that time, right after I was diagnosed, about 3 weeks later, one of my girlfriends, all goes back to friendship, right, the theme of the night, said to me, I have a friend who's in New York who's been diagnosed. Will you help her? And I'm thinking, how can I help her? I can barely help myself. But I thought about it a little more, and I said, sure, why not? And her name is Tanya, and we since have become very, very good friends. And because I really wanted to help her, I had to start helping myself. And I would try these things out on myself to be a friend to myself. And then I would say, hey, this worked. Why don't you try it? Tell me what you think. She was just 3 weeks behind me. Ironically, we had almost identical diagnoses and surgeries and course of treatment going forward. And we just really clicked. And as she was about to get out, into her surgery, she said, you really need to write this stuff down and share it. Other women could use a friend like this.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
And so that's where the book ties in, and it's like that friend who gets it, because there are no two cancers that are the same. There are no two people that are the same, and there is not one minute that I don't realize how incredibly fortunate I am to have caught it early, to have had the treatment options that I've had, to have had the surgery options that I've had. I know that there are women that have it much, much harder than I did. And there is, though, the common denominator. The feelings are all the same. So on that level, we're all tied by this sisterhood and friendship. And the book is just a really simple, comforting way to have that friend when you don't feel like talking to anybody. Right? Does that make sense?
Do you ever feel like you don't want to talk to anybody?
All right. Well, that's an interesting question. During those 10 weeks, I have to say, I did, which was the first time in my life. Because, I always feel like talking.
Right.
But there were some times where I couldn't. And that was, why I wrote this book, for those women, when they have those moments, to be able to find that comfort where they don't want to talk, and just maybe find it in the words, to know that regardless of the staging, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of your circumstance, we're all bound by a common feeling. And that's what I hope resonates with people.
I think it will. I encourage everyone to read the Waiting Room book. For me, reading it about a woman, it was very emotional, but perhaps everyone will find something even small to take away from it, and that would be a great thing.
I wanted to go back, though, and just answer how to be a better friend too, because
Okay.
I didn't answer that first question. That's okay.
This may be a good tee up for your next one, but go ahead.
Okay. I think that that's different for everybody, and it is so incredible to have people care about you and want to help you. But what people don't realize, and I didn't realize until had been diagnosed myself, is we tend to react how we would want people to treat us. But that's not necessarily the case every time. So really asking people what they need and really listening to what they say. Not what you might think they need, but really listening to what they say. So, and from there, I think you can really have a better impact as a friend.
To your point, there's a part in the book that I really love. When you talk about choosing a friend to release sort of emotional baggage that you've been carrying around, and you suggest that this is a good time to do that. You said choose wisely and recommend that you actually tell your friend what type of response you want ahead of time. So for example, I don't need your opinion, but I want to share this with you and I just want you to listen. Or I'm sort of chewing on these two things and I would love to know what you think, but being really clear about what kind of response you're looking for. And the best thing of what you said is when you choose your friend, make sure you choose someone who's compliant.
You need
compliant
okay?
friends.
I mean, think of like the TSA, like going through Logan Airport. You need to be compliant.
You need to be compliant, and that's because you need someone who's capable of taking direction. If you're saying to someone, I don't need your opinion, I just want a hug, you had better be sure that they're going to give you that hug and not say, well, have you thought about XYZ? So I think the idea of choosing your friends based on even what kind of news you need to tell them is really smart, and I intend to do that in my own personal life starting today. So thank you for that. Joe, there are patients joining us tonight, former patients. We have volunteers, many of your friends that are here supporting you, and each person for a different reason, and each person with a different perspective of what they think is going to work for themselves or what they think is going to work with their friend that's going through this. In your book, you place a lot of emphasis encouraging people to do what works for them, and that could look really different for each person faced with this disease, and I think that's true. Talk to us about why it's so important to figure out what's going to work for you and not necessarily take every piece of advice that comes your way.
Okay, this is a really great point and a really great question, Meredith, because it's so overwhelming anyway. You're just overwhelmed by just the sheer news of what you have. And then as women, we tend to worry about everybody else before we worry about ourselves. So I found myself stuck in the pattern of, I have to tell this person, or managing, your parents' expectations around this, or your siblings, your children, if you're married, your spouse, your friendships, your relationship. And I found that there was just really no space for that at all. I couldn't manage anybody's expectations or anybody's feelings. The only feelings I really considered were my children's feelings, my own first. I was very fortunate. I have a sister who is an incredible social worker, and she has a lot of experience, and my girls are very close to her anyway, and they're very close to my family as well, to my mom. And
Now
my
is when you
other
give
sister.
them a shout out.
Thank you to my family. I couldn't have done this, obviously, without you, and especially my mom, who is just, my friends call her, and she's a rock star. But my girls, and I talk about this in the book, finding a person for your kids so they can have a soft place to land is very important, because they're not going to have the mother that they're used to having for a little while. And that's just the reality of it. And I think it's important to not keep going back into those roles and start worrying about everybody else, because you will not be able to take care of yourself. So I really did and I had to learn how to do this through my diagnosis, is I really went inward and worried really for the first time just about myself, which we're not really taught. We're taught to take care of everybody else. And I knew that if I didn't do that and authentically do it, not just say it in the words, not just, the little buzz lines and all that stuff, but I really, if I didn't want to do something, I didn't do it and I didn't explain why. And one of the things I did, one of the tools that I talk about that I thought was really, really helpful is the level of communication. When you're waiting for news and you're waiting for information, everybody that loves you, of course, wants that information too. But you find that you're constantly communicating. So I point people in charge of like larger groups to deliver the information. And I was very clear about, I just can't talk about this all the time because it makes me sad. And I need to be able to focus on getting well. And I know you love me, and I know it's incredibly hard, but I do promise you that I am going to share every bit of news as soon as I get it.
So do you think it's a good idea to sort of appoint somebody as the news person, like have somebody do a group chat for
Like have
you?
a PR.
Yeah, like a PR person, just so that you don't have to constantly feel like you have to give updates to every person. That's a lot of stress.
Yeah, I mean, I had, I would communicate with just a small handful of people. And actually towards the end, when I finally finalized all my doctors, I ended up going to all the appointments on purpose by myself because I wanted to pay attention. I found that when I did take my best friend, who happens to be a nurse, that I would turn into this little kid and I really kind of wouldn't listen and I would be like, well, she's gonna take care of it. And I really, really needed to pay attention. But again, Meredith, everybody, and it goes back to what you said, and I can't say this enough, there are no two people that are the same. Everyone really needs to go deep in themselves and do what's right for them and do not worry about anybody else. I remember speaking to Tanya, actually, who I was helping, 3 weeks behind me. And I remember she was worried about, and things come out sideways because you're so stressed. So like someone can, I don't know, say, how are you doing today? And you'll call and be like, can you believe they did that? Can you believe they asked me how I was doing? How dare they, And so you really have to conserve your energy. And that's not a good use of your energy. So I knew when I was up for stuff and I would go to it, but like a great example, and not many, I don't write about this in the book, but there's one part where I had made a commitment, and all of these people that I would have been with. I was invited to the Contemporary Art Museum down in, the waterfront in the seaport. And we were going to see that amazing show, and I love art, and I had pulled it together, got a blowout and put some makeup on and like a bejeweled top, and I was ready to go. And my friend, who's Joy in the book, picked me up in an Uber, and from my apartment to was probably a mile and a half. I don't know what happened between that 1.5 miles. The Uber driver's probably like, this is just crazy. I don't know what's going on. I lost it. And I needed to go home. And I went home and I got into my pajamas and I went to bed until my kids got home from school. And I just needed to do that. And you need to listen to yourself because that's the most important thing. And do what feels right for you. And that could change from minute to minute. At 11 o'clock, it felt great to, kind of feel normal, right? And then at 11:15, it was like back to the jammies and back into bed. So,
and you gave yourself permission to change your mind and to say, so what that I got ready, and so what that my friend picked me up in an Uber. I'm going home, and I went home.
And that's why, and those are the
That's
friends.
That's hard to do. It's hard to disappoint.
It was hard for me to do. I mean, you've known me for a long time. I'm the person that's like, you don't need to confirm because I'm going to show up.
Right.
And I know that I needed to show up for myself first.
Yeah.
And that was the only chance that I had.
I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, and
okay.
I think
Is it shoes?
No, not shoes, not today.
Okay.
I think we need to talk about not only what to say when your friend tells you that he or she has breast cancer, but also what not to say when they tell you that he or she has breast cancer, what never to say, and maybe you want to use me as an example of what, and I just, in my defense, I will just say that working at the Ellie Fund, you would think that one of us had our act together in having the right response. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes when it's your friend and you're really sad, you just say the wrong thing. Sometimes that happens.
Well, I think let's change the words. It's not wrong or right. It's just, here are some tips to make it softer.
Yeah.
Okay? Because people really, and I found this all through life, they really don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. And especially when they have breast cancer or they have had healed from breast cancer. And in my case, I think you're referencing the conversation that you and I had had. Meredith was not aware that I had breast cancer, and we got back in contact, through the Ellie Fund, through me having been so grateful and wanting to give back in a different way and serve women that are going through what I have been through. And you said, I don't know, what did you say?
I said incorrectly when she told me that she had just been through, a year and a half of breast cancer. And the first thing out of my mouth was, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I could have been helping you at the Ellie Fund. Like, this is what we do. And immediately it shifted your focus to you feeling guilty that you didn't tell me. And
right.
Now I know that's not what you say.
Yeah, it's interesting. And of course, everybody that says that out of love and caring. And I am grateful. And I used to say that too. Mm-hmm. Every time would be like, I wish I knew. I would have brought you a meal. I would. And I. Well, there is no I when it's you. Okay? And that's the one thing that I've learned.
Right.
And I think a great thing to say that always works is, I'm so happy that I'm talking to you now. Please let me know if there's anything that you ever need.
That is good advice.
And you just keep it simple, and it's neutral, and it works. Because what you don't realize, and I think we were talking about this the other day, is the person who's gone through it knows who doesn't know. So it's not shocking to them, right? And at some point it just gets it can get so big, at least the way that it went down for me. I also have friends, and I write about this in the book, who had been diagnosed that opted to keep it just within their immediate family for this exact reason. But I think I did say to one of these people after that they, had been healed, and I did say, I wish I had known. I did exactly what you did. And that's why I could recognize it, and we did it, well intended. But
it's unhelpful.
Yeah, and if your purpose is to be helpful,
right, then
just say, I'm here now, and I can be helpful because just because you've healed, it's not, there's life before and then there's life after, and they're two different phases of your life. There's not one that's better or worse, they're just different, and there's not one friend that can do every single part of it. There's not one family member, because that's really draining. And look at all the support and love you've been able to offer me, since we reconnected in October. So there's different times in your life for different relationships.
You did say that. You did give me a nice out. You said, you're here for me now, and what you can do for me now is what I need. I didn't need you for a meal. And I think that you have this, well, first of all, at the beginning of the book, she talks about being very overwhelmed and sort of feeling out of body. And that lasts about 12 hours. Because right after that, she literally motivates an entire army. She knows exactly which one of her friends, which one of her relatives are good at which job. And she basically tells them, I need this from you, and that from you, and that from you. And I'm sure people were happy to know what you really wanted, and it was a relief. So for people, your problem solving capabilities, I would say, are off the charts. But how did you determine which skill, who was the right caregiver at the right time, who was right before the diagnosis, and who would have been a nightmare, and then who did you ask for help when you were finally recovering? You know, how did you make those decisions?
Well, I think that you really have to just trust your gut, and I say this all the time in business, and I think that there's, you know, it's true in life and it's true in every single way. If you have a challenging relationship in your life and that role has a title that goes with, let's say it's your brother, right? And you and your brother have just, you know, I don't know, you've always butted heads, there's always been some sort of competition or whatever. That person now, chances are is not going to miraculously have personality transfer, okay? And so you're going to spend a lot of time and energy wishing that they were different. You know that they're not. So my advice is park that relationship and just take, and that's just not true for my brother, because like I love him very much, and that's like
Shout out, we love you.
and my sisters and you know, everybody that was there for me, my family. I mean
But you knew who was going to be good at one moment, and you weren't shy about it.
right. And you know, I think for me, my sister, not my sister, the social worker, my other sister was instrumental in being able to help my mom, because I wasn't able to even answer the phone for 2 or 3 days to talk to my mom. I'm sure my mom was scared to death.
Right.
And I can't imagine as a mom what my mom was going through. That's the worst thing ever.
Right.
And so my sister was really amazing at that. And then my other sister was really great with my daughters. And then there was, you know, my friend Joy, who was my emotional support. And my friend Michaela, where, you know, because we had been friends since we were 12 years old, that there's that comfort of home. And then there was, you know, just countless other people, which I don't name in the book because of just to keep their privacy. And I think that and then out of this, I formed, as I talk about, based on the Power of 8, Lynn McEckhart's book, my intention circle or prayer circle, with women that were not all my best friends. And that has been one of the biggest gifts out of this, that I want to give them a shout out, because we now have the privilege of praying for whoever is in need. We pray every Sunday night, and these women they prayed for me from the time of my, you know, diagnosis.
And they were total strangers.
They were total strangers. They were they were friends or acquaintances or people that I always admired. And then there were some of my very close friends. And then it just all kind of came together in this group, and it's grown since. And that's a great book. Anybody who's going through this, it's just called The Power of 8, and it's not a religious book or anything like that, but it's written by a journalist, but I love it.
That's amazing. So I think that, you know, one thing I really appreciated is that you weren't afraid to say, and so many of our patients are women. We do serve men too, but the majority are women, and they're always the caregivers. And they get this diagnosis, and their immediate thought is, my kids, or my parents, like you said, or what are my friends going to think? And this, I'm sure, was not natural for you, but somehow you figured out, and maybe it's just survival mode, that who you needed to focus on was you. And at the Ellie Fund, we see our role as allowing patients to focus on whatever it is that means the most to them, so that they can focus on their own healing.
Yes.
Correct. So what would you say to someone, you know, newly diagnosed, or, you know, maybe making some treatment decisions about how to balance your own personal needs with all these people that you typically take care of?
Yeah, there's just no room. And your kids, and I say this all the time, I mean, they need the basics, and if you can give them, they need to know that you're taking care of yourself. I think that's the biggest lesson. I think that was the first time my daughters really saw me just put myself first. And I think that as a woman, there was no better lesson that I could give them. They stepped, you know, my then 17-year-old immediately became an adult. There's a backlash to everything, but I really had, you know, our life didn't operate the way it always operated, which was dinner was on the table at a certain time, and, you know, the house was always this, and and there were some days that, you know, things just didn't work out that way, even though I did have the privilege of having so much help. And it's not that I really checked out, I checked into myself. I was very open with the girls about that, maybe too open. So my advice would be honest with yourself first on what you can actually take and what's really important. Like, for me, I'm, you know, as you know, I'm a neurotic kind of clean.
I would
Right.
not use that word. No,
But
not neurotic.
for me, my house being in order gives me a sense of peace and calm. And so that was something that I did make sure happened all the time, and it just made me feel better. But was every meal like an organic,
Right.
home cooked, like with a, you know, reduction
Perfectly balanced.
and like steamed asparagus? I don't know. I think that I
don't even know what a reduction is, but it
Okay,
sounds great.
But you know how I am.
I know
with
how
the
you
food.
are.
But I think that I also gave myself a lot of passes, and since maybe that's what it was, one of the many things that it taught me is how to give myself a pass. And I don't know that my kids are any different than anybody else's kids. I mean, I think they're amazing people. They seem to be, you know, they got through it. We got through it together. And I hope that they got to see, you know, how they should take care of themselves and put themselves first.
Right. Oh, that's a really great message. Do you think they would have that skill at such young age to be able
Well,
to?
I think the 16-year-old definitely.
She's already there.
She's already there. No, I'm kidding. No, I think they definitely are empathetic, but they will definitely speak up. The apple does not fall far. And
Apples and trees, babe. We always say that.
They will definitely speak up, and just when they're about to drive me completely crazy, I'm like, wait, but this will really make them a very successful entrepreneur. I can't like
Yeah,
shush
you don't
that.
want to squat, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you know,
So
it's a balancing act.
it's a balancing act, Joanna. A couple things I would like to talk about. Well, first I want to talk about one of my favorite sections of the book, when you pose the question, is it safe to be vulnerable? And just because I know you so well, and because I felt that myself, we're so used to being in control and in charge. When we become the patient, you know, the instinct is just to stay strong for everybody else. And I was wondering if you could read the passage that I'm referring to. These are your amazing words, and it will sound better in your amazing voice.
Okay.
I also think that it's simple and it's honest, and I think it could apply to any challenge that someone was going through, and not just breast cancer. So if you would read this passage
Be
for
happy
us.
to. Yeah, first I want to say, just so for the people that don't know me, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know me on there, and you knew me as a small business owner for many, many years. We spent a lot of time, you know, talking business and talking philanthropy, and I don't know that I ever showed vulnerability, right?
once.
And not once.
Not once,
and
not ever.
And so I think I did a really good job of hiding a lot of the really hard things that were going on in my life. And I knew that if I didn't come clean to myself, that it didn't matter how amazing my doctors were, and they are I mean, I often refer to them as unicorns. I mean, like Stanford educated ones, but
Right,
like, right.
of course.
But of course,
Nothing
all
but the
unicorns,
best.
right. And in other great schools and all that, but they're not only great because of their skill, they're great because of their heart. And I knew that they were going to do their job, but my job was to really be vulnerable and lean into myself and be honest. And I don't think I had ever shown anybody, including anybody. I don't think I would show glimpses to very, very close friends, like my closest friends, but I don't know that I was ever fully vulnerable until this diagnosis. So here it is. So the little subtitle is, and I will just preempt by saying I'm a much better writer than I am a reader, so, which I point out in the book. I listen to, I read like two books a week, but I listen to them, thank God for audiobooks, but.
You'll be fine, Joanna.
But I'm gonna do my best, that's all we can do.
Read the passions, Joanna.
Okay. It is safe to be vulnerable. It's okay to show people that you're scared. You don't always have to keep it all together. If it feels right to call a friend and cry, do it. Reveal your whole self. This will allow you to release the image you have of yourself. This will also enable you to decompress by taking all of the pressure off to appear a certain way. We all get stuck in the roles that we fill in relationships. Take a relationship where you have been the one that was mostly giving advice and ask that person to help you. They will, and it's nice. There's a great comfort in this because it brings the relationship to another level.
Yeah, you're smart, Joanna.
I don't know.
It really spoke to me. I mean, I think that we all have, especially those of us raised in the 80s, right? When you were supposed to dress.
Call it what it is.
Dress.
The best.
Of course, the best decade ever. But besides that, I was told to dress for the job that I wanted.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of how we were like, you can have it all and you can do it all. And of course you're going to, so you sort of spend your formative years cultivating this ridiculous image and then
Of perfection.
And then here you are getting this really devastating disease. And for a minute you're thinking, how am I going to keep up this facade? And you can't.
You don't. I mean.
And it's a gift to yourself to say, bye-bye, facade.
Bye-bye facade, and then really, people are so used to you a certain way, and it's so funny, and they're like, oh no, if she falls apart, what's gonna happen to us? And I completely fell apart. And I didn't fall apart one day and have this epiphany, and then I woke up the next day and it was like, oh, roses and everything. No, I still fall apart. And I think it's not about falling apart. It's about allowing yourself the space to fall apart, not judging yourself, and then being able to get up again. And that's really, the art of healthy resilience, and not to muscle through it. And I knew that for me, my aesthetic was always and still remains so important to me. There's nothing like knocking you off your perch like losing your breasts, okay? And I was very fortunate because I have, I think, the best plastic surgeon on the entire planet, and dangerous to love your plastic surgeon, but
But also smart.
Super. And I was really blessed to be able to have reconstruction and all of that, but you do lose a part of your body, and that is a process. And it doesn't, I think what's interesting, and this is another thing, as a friend helping somebody through, people would say to me, and thank God they did, because they would say, you look amazing, but you look the same.
Oh,
You look the same. You look exactly like you did, and they say it well-intended. But I think what actually one of my doctors said it the best. He said, I can't make you look the way that you look, but I'm gonna make you look the best I can. And I just have this immense, gratitude doesn't even sum it up. There should be another word. You start to appreciate this new version of yourself in every way. And you look at your scars, or you look at what you've lost, and you think, I have gained all these other things. I'm a completely different version of myself, and it gave me the courage to really be who I always was, but always behind this facade, right? Like, you would come into my restaurant all the time, and I would have something really major going on in the back, and she'd be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's fine. What?
Everything's fine.
Everything's
Fine,
fine. Do you want a
fine."
Diet Coke? What's going on? What's going on? And who can we help?
And also, where did you get those shoes?
And we're
Digress. Go ahead.
digress.
So for a lot of people, who don't have such a wide network of people that can support them, I feel like what we learn about our patients, first of all, a lot of our patients are single. And so facing a diagnosis and a prolonged illness like this, basically being the sole information processor and decision maker, I think is really, really difficult. What would you say about, you don't need a massive network. What if you are maybe more introverted and maybe you're single or your family lives far away? Like, how can you comfortably sort of, navigate building something around you? And if you can't, do you personally, now that you know about the Ellie Fund, do you feel like we could serve that
Absolutely.
that purpose?
I feel like I was actually speaking to my childhood priest's wife this morning. She's breast cancer. She's healed from breast cancer as well. And I was talking to her about what the Ellie Fund does, and primarily you serve a lot of people in Worcester, my hometown.
Woo, woo.
The woo. I am from Worcester. I moved to Boston when I was 17 years old, so that was 31 years ago, but I'm still from the heart of Massachusetts, and the heart of Massachusetts is still in my heart. And I said, they serve so many women. I said, you and I were so fortunate because we had, people that we could go to, but they do all those things that we had done for us. Like, how do you get to, I never had to drive to an appointment post-care, ever. I had, my friend Laura drove me, my friend, like, they would watch the drains come out. They would sit and hold my hand. They would take notes when I was, not all there. My mom, who's an incredible cook anyway, would bring, and my stepfather, they would come all the time to make sure we had every meal. I had a wonderful woman who helped me at home that she was like part of the family. So I had a lot of help, and so did my priest's wife. And I said, the Ellie Fund does all those things. And she said, well, people need to know about it.
People do need to know.
And I was like, well, this is why we're doing this. People need to know about it, because you lose so much in that moment when you get that information. And your kids then still need to eat dinner.
Correct.
And you still need to have laundry.
Correct.
Right? Because you still need to wear clothes, and you still need to get to the doctor, right?
And
so
the
there's
grocery
basics.
store.
And you need to go get groceries. And to have that network and that opportunity, need blind, available through the Ellie Fund for all women in Massachusetts, regardless of where they live or where they're from or how much they have or how much they don't have, or if they have 1,000 people helping them or if they have no one. That in itself, like, this is what drew me to it. Aside from the fact that, like, I knew that you would never be anywhere that wasn't amazing. And then I got to know your incredible team. And it happened organically and instantly. And it gives you your dignity. It gives you that piece of normalcy. Like, the pandemic's a great example, right? So we all go a year and 2 weeks ago into this whole new phase of life, right? And everyone through this is just striving for some normalcy, right? Like, is it that one thing, your favorite restaurant reopened and you got to do takeout from that one meal that you had been missing? Or is it you got to FaceTime, or you got to hug somebody who's just been vaccinated that you hadn't seen in a year? Those little sense of, like, normalcy, those human touch points. And when you get diagnosed with breast cancer or anything, I would imagine, you are searching for those markers in your life that keep that sense of Okay, that's
That
your
feels
comp.
right.
Because you said before, it's like you're so used to being in control, and you're never in control. And the pandemic, I think by the time, you just never are.
Even when you think you are,
even
you're
when
not
you think
in
you are.
control.
So it's about kind of holding on to what makes you feel familiar and a little bit of nostalgia. And maybe that is your favorite chicken salad from Whole Foods, right? And like your favorite stuff being brought to you, and you can just make yourself a salad and feel like, oh, I ate this 3 weeks ago before I knew I had this, and
And
I
I'm
remember
still eating it.
and I'm still eating it.
And I think I do want to say a couple things about, oh dear, about the services that the Ellie Fund provides. And a lot of people are watching know this, but we really do a lot of grocery gift cards for families. And it's what we like about it is that people can choose their own grocery store, so they're not having to go.
Like if you go to your Roche Brothers, you go to your
Stay at Roche
right?
Brothers. If you're a Stop and Shop person, you stay at Stop and Shop. And one thing that patients have told me is that what they loved about the gift cards is that they could give the gift card to a neighbor or even to a teenage kid who had a car and say, here, could you go grab this for me? And it gave them a sense. They weren't asking them to pay for anything. They didn't.
Makes it easier to ask.
It made it easier to ask.
Yes.
And I think that if the Ellie Fund, can feed people and nourish whole families, not just the patient. I mean,
Well,
we
it's the
feed
whole family
everyone.
that
It's the
gets
whole
diagnosis.
It's the
not
whole
just the
family,
patient.
right?
When the mom or the dad goes down, it's
Keep going, Joanna.
need-
No, we're good.
when the mom or their family gets something, then that's the whole family is affected. Okay, it's it's like man down, right? And
Mom down.
and you really, anything that you can do to help you feel better, and everything that Ellie Fund is designed to do helps you feel better. And you can pick which parts work for you.
Right.
And the no questions, I know, like when I refer patients, I get emails back saying, thank you so much.
Oh, that's good.
I can't believe this was so helpful. And there's a sense of, you don't need to talk about it. No one's going to ask you, did you
Right.
get your biopsy stuff? Did you get your
We
pathology?
get it. We don't
You
ask
get
any
it.
questions.
You get it. You don't ask questions.
Questions?
And it's a really, it's a safe, helpful place to land. And it's, everybody so many people that are working there were people that had used the Ellie Fund as patients, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the biggest
Yeah.
testament. It's like, I say to that's how when you're looking at schools for your kids,
Yeah.
you look at the schools that people that went there as adults want to send their kids back to
Exactly.
because they loved it so much, and it's that kind of nice.
It's true. That's a
that
really
family,
It's
yeah.
a really nice thing. We have some questions from the audience.
You do.
And
We have an audience.
we have an audience.
We have a few questions. Sheila, who is a breast cancer patient, asked us, during COVID restrictions, patients feel so isolated
Yes.
and their friends can't go with them, their family can't go with them. And she said, what is a good way to safely bring them in so they understand it all and it feels less solitary for the patient?
Okay, that's a great question. First of all, I want to wish you well on your journey, and every day a step closer to healing. I think you have to look at maybe bringing in one or two people that you feel that you can be very honest with in your friends and family, like that person that's going to get you no matter what and not judge what you're saying, and ask them to set up a big group text. I did this, and it was a one-way point of communication. And if you want it to be a two-way point of communication, that's up to you, and that can change anytime. Remember, you're in charge. So you can put together this group and really just share what you want and say to people on that group text, hey, listen, I'm not really comfortable with questions, but when I have something to share, I'd love to share it in this space. And people really, I know that at least the feedback that I received is they really, really enjoyed that. They loved it, and they were so grateful, so they felt included. And I did really, like, I was very comfortable, like, as soon as I would get my pathology, I would be, like, right in the car, texting my friend Joy saying, please update, or I would communicate with my sister a lot that way as well. And just having like 1 or 2 point people that are going to be the spreaders of whatever you want to share. Because it is isolating, and I myself, I don't understand exactly what you're going through, but I went through a revision surgery in October. I went in by myself. I had to be there by myself. I did take my book with me.
Your friend.
I did take my friend with me. And my kids always joke. They're like, I take it with me, and they're like, Mom, I can't believe you carry around your own book. And I'm like, I actually use the stuff. Like, I know, like, you're carrying around the book, like, oh, read the book, I'm using it, okay? This is like, and they're like, oh, I can't believe it. But anyway.
Well, actually, the last question is for you, Meredith. So Angela wants to know, how can she and other people listening tonight help the Ellie Fund? Angela?
Angela, good question.
I think this might be my friend Angela.
This was not a prompt. This is a real question.
I think this might be my friend.
Angela, so glad you asked. We have lots of opportunities for people to get involved at the Ellie Fund. We actually have this incredible meal delivery program where our patients, if they choose to get meal delivery, there's these really chef-inspired meals that people can choose from, and it's like a service that anybody would go to and when they didn't have time to cook, but it's delivered by really sweet, well-intentioned volunteers, many of whom have already gone through this, and this is the way they want to give back.
Or they've had a family member go through it, just in case in point.
And also, Joanna just sent us a friend who her sister had gone through it, and she's international, and she felt like she wanted to give back, and so she's going to get involved with our volunteer group. The woman on my team who is fabulous, who runs the community volunteer program, Kristen, takes really good care of our volunteers and figures out what they like to do and matches their skill set to what opportunities we have. The Ellie Fund, it's all private donations. So every $10, every $5, every, kids doing a bake sale, it all helps. And so we try and activate our volunteers as ambassadors in their communities. And sometimes they do fundraising, third-party events, and sometimes they just attend events. So I think there's lots of ways to get involved, but on our website you can fill out an inquiry, and you will get a call from Kristen, who runs our volunteer group, and she'll be more than happy to talk to you and find out what opportunities we have that would mean something to you, and if there's something special, a skill set that you have that you think we could use. We are not shy. We put everyone to work. So, make sure you want to help, Angela, before you say that.
And what about Meredith? What amount of people, I don't remember the statistic, they're below, like on a poverty level that you help?
So that's a good question. So for the Ellie Fund, we always talk about how we don't require any financial information, and there's several reasons for that. The most important is that when you're faced with a diagnosis like this and you need help, the last thing you really want to do is go find your tax records and fill out a financial statement to prove that you need parking for the next 8 weeks of treatment. It's really unfair, and so we don't ask for that. We don't ask for any proof of financial need. We help everyone, fully insured, fully employed, and also, even though we don't ask, we end up helping so many people that live at the poverty level and are making real decisions between food and treatment, between having to go take 3 buses to get to their oncologist where it's not safe, especially through COVID, and maybe it's just too much to take 3 buses, so maybe I'm not going to go. And the Ellie Fund, we will put you in a cab, we will put you in Uber, whatever you're comfortable with, we will pay for parking. And so at that level, we do have families that are really choosing truly between grocery and medicine, and we're not.
So
that's
if
not
people
okay with
wanna-
us.
If people can also, if they can't give up their time because they're working to donate meals, they can send a donation, and or if they have a company match, like
Right.
that. I think that for me, not having had that kind of taken off the table for me, where I didn't have to worry about how I was going to pay to have my operation, my therapy that went on, I think is a huge relief. And yet I was still so stressed. So I can't imagine a mom trying to feed her child and herself and try to stay healthy. And so I think that there's a lot, everything. Like, you can volunteer, you can do $5 or $10, you can do a larger donation, you can go to one of the events, just anything.
It
right?
all helps.
It all helps.
It all helps. And we're thrilled that there's so many people tonight that we've never met that are participating. And so, I always say the best thing you could do to help is to refer someone that you know who's going through breast cancer and say, do you know about the Ellie Fund? They can really help you. The only two requirements we have are that the patient resides in Massachusetts or is coming to Massachusetts for treatment. So we actually do have, probably 10 to 12 states at any given time outside Massachusetts where people can get help. And are there any more questions yet? Okay, perfect. I do need my glasses that I dropped. Thank you.
That's an Oprah move.
Oh, really?
My glasses.
I'm really hoping that she's going to retire soon. Okay. So, Joe, I think, as I've been told, our time is running short
That
for
flew
tonight.
by.
It did. And it's been so special for all of us. I hope everybody can take away one message tonight, a small message or a large message that is meaningful to you, and that you will join us, and obviously you're going to join us again, for the next Ellie Connects, which we hope will take place in September. So please keep an eye out and continue to follow us on social media. We are looking for feedback from tonight's conversation, so in our spirit, please tell us what worked, what didn't work, and what to never do again. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn by using @EllieFund. Thank you all. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you to the team, to our sponsors, and thank you all for being a part of this conversation and a part of our family.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Thank you for the opportunity, and to all the women and their families and men going through this. Just remember, one day at a time, and be kind to yourself. And I wish you all the best. Happy healing.
Thanks for joining us.